I got to a point in my parenting where I was so frustrated all the time that I wasn't sure why God had given me these children. And that's a really difficult place to be when it's not going like you thought it would. And I thought I was the only one that felt that way. And I came to realize that most moms and dads feel that way at some point in their parenting journey. I think a lot of times as parents, we get caught in a trap of saying things we regret or that, are hurtful or just are not helpful. And it's very easy to do that when you're caught in the moment and you're triggered and you're frustrated. We have 4 boys from toddlers to teens. And so there's a verse that says to outdo one another with brotherly affection and to outdo one another in showing honor, to love one another with brotherly affection. And so we really made that like a foundational parenting script in our house. And so whenever there's a squabble, we'll say to our kids, what can you do to outdo your brother in this situation? And we don't mean in a competitive way to get the upper hand. We mean, how can you outdo him in showing him honor and brotherly affection? And it works for us in our marriage too. It's like if we go into our relationships and our parenting with the emphasis of what can I do to be a blessing to somebody else, then when they come, the kids come and they're squabbling, I'm not like pulling my hair out like, can't you just get along? I can breathe a second and say, hey, what could you do in this moment to outdo your brother in showing him honor? Maybe that looks like forgiving him in this moment. Maybe it's overlooking that little offense. It's like, he's touching me, she's touching me. It's like, okay, yeah. So we're gonna help you mature because obviously you're still immature in this moment. But let's look for a proactive biblical approach to handling conflict with our kids and breathing life into them, things that are really gonna shape their character as opposed to just being triggered. I got to a point in my parenting where I was so frustrated all the time that I wasn't sure why God had given me these children. And that's a really difficult place to be when it's not going like you thought it would. And I thought I was the only one that felt that way. And I came to realize that most moms and dads feel that way at some point in their parenting journey. And so identifying those triggers and taking like a couple of the key ones that were the most challenging for me was really important. Like with littles, trying to get out the door on time and nobody has their shoes. And I would just get so frustrated. Like, I've told you 20 times it's time to go. I had to take a step back, recognizing that, my anger and frustration isn't helping the situation at all. And so I had to get baskets and put them by the front door so that shoes went by the front door. So we weren't wasting time getting out the door looking for the shoes. And it's okay if I don't love the way it looks, at least we're getting out the door in time. One of the things that I think is so critical was a turning point for me in my journey away from angry parenting toward more gentle biblical practices was recognizing that there's a difference in our kids trying to set us off and push our buttons and understanding and recognizing that they have a developmental maturity level that I need to be sensitive to. Sometimes the things our kids are doing are not because they're bad kids, it's because they're immature kids. And so our triggers are simply opportunities for us to recognize that they still have more teaching and training to do. I talk about putting on a mom as coach or dad as coach mentality, especially in the early years. When you have an athlete or a musician, they don't show up at the field or in the choir room ready, mature, ready to go to the Olympics or playing in the amazing, Philharmonic. We assess where they're at. And then as the coach or as the instructor, we come alongside them and we say, okay, here are your strengths. Let's play to those. I'm going to help you in those strengths. Here's some of your weaknesses. This is why it's a weakness. Let me show you a better way. And let's practice. And then maybe at some point you'll get to play in the game or perform in the concert. And yet in parenting, the kid misbehaves, they don't do the right thing, and we just react in anger and frustration. We don't become more proactive and put on the mom as coach mentality where we come alongside them. One thing I really hope parents also know is that if you have struggled with anger and frustration, you likely also feel a lot of guilt and shame over that. And whenever you're parenting, the game changes on you all the time, because once you feel like you've got a handle on one age and stage, then the kids are maturing and growing and you've got something new to manage. And so one thing we want to say is, please remember that Satan is your accuser, but Jesus is your friend. And so if you've got tapes running in your head that are telling you, I'm a bad mom, I'm so terrible, maybe I shouldn't have these kids, what we want to do is remember that there's a difference between godly conviction and condemnation that comes from your enemy. So don't allow Satan to condemn you, but allow godly conviction to catapult you towards spiritual growth. That's the key of all of this. So teaching our kids, coaching them in the behavior that we want them to display. Because if we're just adding fire to fire, if we're just reacting in anger, if we're not coming alongside them and helping them develop and mature both physically and spiritually and emotionally, then we're really wasting and not honoring that stewardship that God has given us. So we want to give you hope that it's absolutely possible to shift, and that God is able. If God could help me in my parenting journey, He can help anybody. But don't look at your triggers as problems. Remember that they're opportunities and that you get to be mom and dad as coach.